Hello team, this is Christoph with Kaiserworks presenting 346 East Thomas. This is our intro slide, Bijou, and the purpose of this slide really is to communicate the materiality and general material honesty and warmth that we are suggesting for the material palette, which I think reinforces the authenticity of what is being sold, which is bread and croissants and good French cuisine. Before I get into, this is our slide or image that we've been using for background for sketches and renderings. Before I get into this, I'm going to revisit the rendering that we did back when this process started. And one of the big takeaways as we've walked through some of the design process is the reality of needing parapets to conceal our mechanical screens. So this was the design that we landed on for 336, which is in process currently. We have a parapet condition that allows us to hide air conditioning units on the roof. And because this is true for 336, it's even more so true for 346, where we have, in addition to our mechanical units, to keep the building cool, we're going to have equipment and mechanical units for the restaurant itself. Putting mechanical screens large enough to obscure those on the roof of a modest scale house is such that it will significantly dwarf the house itself. And we had this experience with a few other projects, and I can share those with you offline if you'd like me to walk you through those. But the reality of the mechanical screens that would be required by the city of Phoenix are not going to do us any favors while trying to pitch this as a quaint, small French bistro house. Another line of thinking was had more to do with what is sitting directly next door. We have this large building. I'm going to go now to this other slide that speaks to 500 East Thomas. We have a large three-story office building that is in a modern and mid-century modern palette, and the hardscape, the landscape design of that extends sort of across the entire campus, so that there's a consistency there, there's a language there, and we simply need to be careful with what we're putting at 346 for this restaurant. Um, Going now to this background sketch, and I'm going to go immediately to one of our first design sketches in this latest round. What you're looking at here is taking the same fluted form that we're using for the saddlebag or the ancillary building on the east side of 500 East Thomas, and reintroducing that in a playful way as a means of creating a scrim around the existing building. This lets us keep the existing structure. We're going to be cutting holes in it, obviously introducing fenestration, but it lets us keep that existing. And what we're showing here, regardless if it takes this form or another form, what we're proposing is that we come approximately 15 feet forward and we define private outdoor space that is enclosed. It may be open to the sky, but the idea would be that it would live inside of a scrim or a trellis, so that you could be sitting 15 feet or 10 feet, let's say, south of the existing building, and you're away from Thomas by virtue of the fact that you're sitting in an exterior room of sorts, presumably shaded from above, and you're looking both into the space where you've just got your croissant and your coffee, and you're also able to look out. You're somewhat shielded by this low landscape wall in this case as well, but the idea is that you have a building that stands as it's a bit of a sculptural piece, and it reinforces what's being done at Beetle by borrowing a small piece of the material but using it in a new and sort of innovative way. What we're looking at materially, these are some reference images we found. Sift and Pour is this great little, it's actually a French bakery as well. Here you can see their case of baked goods, and you can see that scallop form marching across. This is also used just above their entry, and this is a residential project but showing a similar type of perforated metal that becomes this very sculptural and beautiful ephemeral screen that becomes the face of the building. These were some examples of French restaurants. This is French Bistro, or sorry, French Laundry, one of the most famous French restaurants. Simply to speak to the fact that we don't need to be kind of tongue-in-cheek or cliche French. And in fact, we would suggest highly that we don't make sort of cliche. We don't announce the Frenchness of this place by virtue of having a French flag or French doors or something that is very kind of one-dimensional. Um, but instead to do that with the cuisine that's being offered, with the typography, the text, the menu in your hand, the attire that people are wearing, and those sorts of things, to give a little bit more of an elevated experience. These are some of the material references we're using for our interior palette. So bringing in the warmth of wood, bringing in um, natural light, potentially having greenery inside the building as well as vines growing on the outside of the building. And moving back to that sketch again, the proposal here is that this again, this archway and the perforated material above it is approximately 15 feet south of the existing building, and this is this interstitial cafe zone. This communicates activity to people that are driving by in the street, so you can see people dining both outside on the south side of the building, on the west side of the building, and on the east side of the building potentially. You're also looking in to see the activity and the goods that are being sold, so your eye is pulled directly in to that space. This was some of the early graphic. As we start to think about design, where our brains immediately go to graphic and menu, and this was some of the reference images we found of French restaurants that are in the modern kind of vein. I'm going to show you now another design sketch that we did. This is a similar footprint. In plan, this would look the same as the initial image that I showed you with the big arch. So we're defining private outdoor space on the south side of the building. So the glass wall is the current facade, and then 15 feet south of that we would have a breeze block. And when I say breeze block, I'm talking about something like this, where we'd have potentially an integral color white that would match a white stucco above it. And you're again defining an exterior room that's on the front of the building. And so you'd be looking through these portals, you'd see activity, you'd be looking through these actually into the building itself. Here we're showing a small piece of branding, and then here we're showing a freestanding wall of that same breeze block that would separate vehicular traffic that's going on the side here from this small side garden. Um, Nothing else really to call out with regard to this. These are simply different trellis material options that we had considered in the stead of this material. So in other words, this fluted material, why we love it, and it's something that we're very, very excited. I think it's going to make the Beetle project stand out as something that people just simply haven't seen. And we really do like the idea of that being reinforced on the same campus, but in a fresh way. We understand that this could also be another form of enclosure. This could be slats, this could be trellis that has vines growing on it in a more sort of conventional way as an option. And this last image, well, there's actually a few more. This was the image that we had started with and recognized this is too large. The stature is simply too tall. And the first sketch I had done walking away from that was a simply shorter version of that. Again, we're going to go to a parapet so we can put all of our mechanical tucked high and tight. And what if we took the same trellis material and clad that building with it? So this is an option, which again is somewhat of this option, but you simply cut off everything that happens above this line. And then another option that we had investigated, and I'm not usually as candid showing all of our process here, but this was another option we had looked at, where you take a house form and you extend it again towards the street. The portion that is closest to the street simply becomes an exterior room of sorts, with a hearth that you could gather around. But again, looking at this in the context of what's sitting directly next to it, we felt that we didn't want to push this further in a domestic direction, because you look at this sketch and this could be a nice house, and we don't think that's the right vibe for what we're building as a whole. If you think of this as a campus as a whole, we think the biggest play to let this entire Beetle campus feel like a destination is going to be something closer to either something like this, where it speaks more of commercial versus retail, or sorry, versus residential, or something like this, which we feel has the gravity. This pulls you in. This beckons your curiosity. You want to go check this place out. So we look forward to your thoughts on this, and thank you for your patience in getting this to you.